Chapter 10. At the center of your experience is the awareness that you are, that you exist. This awareness is separate and apart from your body and your brain. It can be likened to a tiny computer chip that continues to be programmed by what is experienced by you through your every thought, word, and deed. Your observer ego writes the code and you act and react in accordance with that programming. The chip undergoes constant reprogramming as you add, subtract, and change your thoughts, words, actions, attitudes and beliefs. To continue the comparison in computer terminology, the active memory is stored within the brain and the stored memory within the cells of the body and magnetic field that surrounds the body. The body itself can be likened to an alkaline battery. Thus when its overall pH balance is too acidic it does not function at its ideal capacity. Your tiny computer chip is your personal connective portion of creation with a capital, that which is all that is, pure potentially in contemplation of itself. You indeed are gods in training. Through your free will you are allowed to figure out how to become a god, and the recognition of this begins your ascent toward or away from that goal. To desire to accomplish this ascent toward godliness is programmed within that chip and cannot be changed or removed. It remains no matter how much it is ignored or how many times it is overridden with other programming. It is always there waiting to be activated. Inasmuch as you can know that you are, that you can observe that you think, act, make decisions, observe and experience with the five senses and more, is called self-awareness. It is that portion that is beyond the physical brain function. It is your bit of immortality. Now it is your opportunity to begin to increase your operating system through recognizing and honoring this chip, thus utilizing its potential from bytes to bits, kilobytes, megabytes, and gigabytes. The comparison of a human to a computer is more apropos than you can imagine. Indeed, computers are modeled from the human example. Mankind, without understanding that its root meaning from antiquity is God, man tosses about the word human. Where is this tiny chip that supposedly is at the center of the human experience? When the human is dissected, where is this marvelous chip? The answer is, can you see your awareness? The chip is the life force, the breath that is present at birth and leaves at death. It is the unknowable secret that we can only wonder if creation knows. Is it the mystery that propels creation to contemplate itself, and because of that is it the reason that we exist and pursue the same contemplative experience? Chapter 11. In these messages, references to mankind and humanity are one and the same, with no deference or difference intended for male or female. He and his are intended as he, she, and her, his entirely as equals, which they are, with properties of form and purpose that are unique and common. There are certain indisputable facts that are laid as groundwork for the story of humanity as it exists on this planet to unfold in a concise and understandable sequence. There are many inhabited planets in this and other solar systems. Many contain self-aware, intelligent life forms. Many are far advanced in conscious awareness of who and what they are within creation as it now exists. Interplanetary travel does now and has existed for what you would term as eons of time. This planet has been and continues to be visited. There are different purposes for these visits by different representatives from various planets. These visitors have and do interact at various levels with life forms on this planet. There indeed are benevolent beings of higher understandings that have been and are now committed to helping humanity on Earth to cope with and transcend the future that is coming forth now. Within this understanding, what follows is a brief history of many thousands of years for this branch of the human family tree. There was a time in which mankind was indeed a carefree being. What you would refer to as childlike. Just as your children begin life as dependent babes that progress through stages of playing life in their own reality despite the world of adulthood going on all about them, mankind was this kind of being, open, naive, playful and easily influenced. As explained before, creation is experienced within both the positive and the negative polarities, in a balance of travels to and from the point of equilibrium between the two. This can involve experiences of what might be termed aggression and acquiescence. Built into the focused awareness of all conscious, self-aware, life forms, is a balance for this experience of both polarities. You call it self-defense, or the innate reaction of fight or flight, triggered by the automatic insertion of adrenaline into the body. There was a group that through what you call genetic engineering changed their life form to eliminate this function. This allowed them to remain in the positive consciousness experience, a very pleasant way to live indeed. However, it left them defenseless insofar as any form of aggression was concerned. Their solution, instead of re-establishing this balancing function, was to find a less evolved species and have them provide this needed service for them. You guessed it. A group of less evolved humanoids. However, just to make sure they did their job, They were genetically engineered to enhance the adrenal output to make sure they reacted more aggressively than was natural. To make a long story short, this change caused an imbalance that changed the personality and limited the ability of this altered species to know their innate connection to creation. Those who engineered this change then found their intended helpers unstably and threatening rather than being the protectors they had desired. The solution to their problem did not include re-engineering the altered humans so that succeeding generations would return to normal, since that failed to provide an immediate solution to their perceived problem. Instead, they simply shipped them off to a sparsely inhabited planet in a far-off corner of the galaxy where they were not likely be discovered, and blame for this failed experiment would not likely be placed on them, even if the forcibly mutated future generations were discovered. To ensure this, all memory of this experience was erased and no records were allowed to be taken by the altered humans on the trip to Earth. In other words, this branch of humanity was shipped off to what might be termed a prison planet and left to either destroy each other or perhaps eventually work out their genetic imbalance through adaptation. Impossible? Think back to the colonization of the USA or that of Australia. The nation of England emptied their prisons in that process, doing exactly the same thing with hopes of the same result. Did this act of enslavement interfere with the free will of this segment of humanity? Indeed it did. Why then was it allowed to proceed? The offending planet made the acts by their free will choice, but through the law of attraction, so was the result of drawing to them a complementary experience. The law of attraction works and cannot be escaped by ignoring fact and hiding the evidence. Once you accept this premise, you begin to understand the situation that now surrounds you. However, there is more to this story. This transgalactic shipment was not unobserved. Other advanced humans were aware of the scenario and have over the eons of time visited you. It became obvious that adaptation was not eliminating the genetic alteration. Thus a further experiment was begun. Your Bible refers to visitors finding the daughters of men fair and mating with them. This was in hopes that the introduction of another gene pool into abandoned humanity would in subsequent generations eventually overcome the genetic alteration. If not, then the increased intelligence through the hybridization process might allow them to overcome the alteration through coming up with their own solution to the problem. From time to time, the introduction of extra gene pool additions have been made through carefully chosen genetic matching. Progress has been made. However, the overwhelming result has been that the additional intelligence enhanced the aggressive tendency in many of the humans, with the end result that aggressive tendencies within those not positively affected by the gene pool changes were reinforced with greater abilities to develop incredible applications of weaponry. They used the additional intelligence to organize to a high degree with the purpose of creating a hierarchy of power and control over the members of humanity on this planet that have evolved to a balanced genetic structure. Both of these negative results continue now. This raises the question of whether the gene pool additions resulted in interfering with the planet in violation of universal law with regard to free will. None of this was done without it being cleared through ruling councils of galactic beings that focus creative energy and oversee the balance of the galaxy. If you are focused thought thinking, which you are, then there are levels of focused thought thinking, greater thoughts than you can yet imagine. There are benevolent beings that are part of the plan of creation that entails responsibilities of overseeing the galactic maintenance and expansion process. Because genetic development was approved for this planet, other visitors have come to this planet as a source of gene pool improvement for their planetary inhabitants. This has been carried out with carefully selected individuals. Approval for this is given by these individuals beforehand through a process that will purposely not be discussed at this time. There is much knowledge that you have been denied that it is your right to know. Through manipulations by those still caught in the throes of the genetic alteration that require them to pursue control to support their violent tendencies, you have been denied this information, even though it has been brought to Earth many times. The benevolent beings have walked among you teaching, and because of being attacked and killed, have then come undetected to continue the gene pool experiments with selected recipients, educating them through clandestine meetings in attempts to bring you into the awareness of who and what you are. Unfortunately, the powerful controllers distort the teachings and use them for their own gain, and you are left bereft of the needed knowledge to lift yourselves from this morass of violent behavior. The happy news of this story is that there are sufficient numbers of genetically different humans now residing on this planet to change the behavior pattern of the planet back to the normal range. They must, however, find out whom they are and what to do. The question that remained for the benevolent ones was how to do this. If they came themselves, the weaponry would be employed and death would be the end result. The teachers they instructed have ended up with the same result and the teachings altered to suit the purposes of the aggressive ones. How then are the wheels to be set into motion to bring this situation to an end? Telepathic, mind-to-mind communication, is a common attribute of humanity, but was lost to the humans marooned on this planet in the genetic alteration. Through the gene pool change, a significant number of Earth's inhabitants had this ability come into being quite naturally in a rudimentary form. Those benevolent beings that use telepathic abilities as a normal part of life found they could communicate with many of the genetically enhanced beings in recent generations. However, this was as successful as the knowledge and understanding of the Earth human allowed, since the knowledge imparted had to be filtered through their understandings and vocabulary. Total awareness of the Earth human could also be pushed aside with the human's permission, and the higher awareness could speak directly. However, this process was limited by the benevolent being's understanding and awareness of what the human experience entailed. Because of this lack of understanding at each side of the process, it was difficult for humanity to understand the teachings or to accept the process at all. This process has been known as channeling. Partial teaching has been accomplished, but it has not been entirely satisfactory. However, no better way to communicate directly has yet been devised. The enhancement of the understanding of the receiving human has been the only solution thus far, so that more clarity can be incorporated into the information. In order that what is understood from the information made available thus far reaches as many of the genetically corrected humans as possible, it was necessary that the information be spread without being distorted by the controlling powers. Thus the enhancement in information speed and various means of it were allowed to be given, even though it was assumed that the aggressive group would use it for their own purposes. However, at this time information to the genetically normal humans can travel to them quite freely. The problem of the moment is to get the information circulating. It should be further noted that the information given through telepathic use of humans must be considered with the discernment of logic accompanied by the open mind of whether it could possibly contain truth. Truth is individually discerned through the screen of life experience and should be weighed and considered carefully by each person. Enhanced communication is also in the form of books that now contain careful research of what you would call ancient history. These bring forth information from the time in which the benevolent beings from other planetary systems could walk on the Earth in safety. These visits were recorded in the language and art of the day. Lacking photographs and written word understood by many people, myths were told by words and simple symbols that have been misinterpreted both innocently and purposefully. The enlightened teachers purposefully hid much information for later discovery. Some has been found in recent times and has been either destroyed or hidden from you soon after the discovery.